Welcome to the last video where I mentioned, the bright sides of weight loss. Having gone through this three-part series and slightly putting it off a bit, but we're here. Either way, this is not going to be a long video. The last of the series, the goal of this one is just kind of briefly highlight some of the things and the changes I've noticed after such a massive weight loss that I think were those good outcomes. And I just want to kind of walk my way through it and then really just explain and hopefully connect with some people on some of these changes that came and some of the aspects I've noticed when I had some of that massive, the changes that came along the way. And like I said, it was a journey and I've learned a lot. And not only just some of the darker ends and maybe things that were kind of neutral, but the really good things that I kind of learned for myself and then the environment around me with this. So why not just follow along and kind of walk through and see what some of those things were? One of the first good things that I kind of noticed with the weight loss is that clothes fit a little differently. There's a different type of confidence that came from wearing different kinds of clothes. Not just like bigger, baggier clothes, but like certain athletic clothes. Sleeveless shirts became a little bit more comfortable wearing. It was a bigger amount of confidence that was stored up. Dressy type of clothes. I don't have many dress clothes, but I do like to wear that kind of stuff. And when you're coming out of that stage of being so large, the confidence really isn't there. And it comes back once you get, lose the weight, you have a smaller image and a different frame. Now, I also use smaller loosely because jeans can still kind of be a challenge with the thighs being a bit bigger. And in certain cases, shoulder thing, certain shirts are hard to find. So switching from the big boy kind of style to the not as big but still big boy style of clothing is still a challenge. The challenge is just differently. And another thing that kind of changed, or the good side, I would say, maybe, from the weight loss is shoes. Shoe size also would change. I would go from wearing a size 16, 17 in high school to now, depending on the shoe type, I can get into about a 13, 14 for the most part. So that kind of shrunk over my time with losing weight. So finding shoes now is a bit easier within that regard. So with weight loss, clothes, shoes, in certain instances, are a little easier to find. Trying one's a bit more comfortable, and you get to really enjoy playing around with different styles. On the list of the, I would say, good things that kind of come from this weight loss, another thing I would say is exercising. Exercising is good pretty much all the time. It should be a part of your routine, from training to physical fitness to just basic physical exercise. But for me, one thing I've noticed is that training does become essentially a bit more enjoyable and a bit easier actually after you kind of lose weight, and you're more willing to try out a lot of new things. You really know. For one, liked mobility. I like to take my time. I like to put myself in new ranges of motion. I like to kind of really get myself into the weeds of that, but also other types of training too. I enjoyed Olympic lifting a lot more. That became a lot easier when I didn't have to worry about essentially like fat being in the way or be a hindrance of the actual movement pattern when you're that large. And so as I wanted to do more of these athletic kind of based movements and was able to hit the gym, and I spent my time with bodybuilding, that became more fun. Another one of the good things that came from the weight loss, one of the bright things I've joined, is learning how to cook. Or, well, I kind of know how to cook a little bit, but trying new things and meal prepping and being regimented. I kind of enjoy that thing. I don't mind eating the same things over and over. So for me, having that time, taking that time to just cook different things, like I'm making steak, chicken, trying different foods together, I really had fun with it. You get to have fun with that kind of thing. And when you're able to sit down and kind of experiment and try out what works best for you, like what makes you be inflamed, what doesn't, what makes you feel good after a workout, what is something you eat in the morning. That is what I say one of the better things that came from this, because you really do experiment on yourself. You really get to try and see, okay, I didn't like that. Let's try something else. And it's not always the processed foods, because you made it for the most part. There are still processed things, but because you've taken the time to experiment, it's usually not an issue. All in all, what this all comes down to, as I was saying, the last point I said was the bright side of the weight loss, is that it allows me to do two different things. I get to share the story now. In terms of making content like this, where I get to talk about it, more of the steps along the way, the journey that kind of happened, and then my good contribution to coaching. It allowed me to change career paths. I went from, like I mentioned in the last video, from chef and astrophysics, blah, blah, psychology, to where now I get to be a full-time strength coach and personal trainer. And to add to, I would say, the world, for lack of better terms, in that regard, where I get to help people get better in their physical health, their mental health, as well as become more of an athlete to perform in whatever area they're in. I enjoy this, and I really would say that's the last point, and one of the greatest points along this journey is that from that 5 years, I ended up here. Never would have guessed. Never foresaw myself being in front of the camera making content, nor did I really like pictures and videos. That's why I would say I don't have as much to add to these videos that I would have wanted to, now that I'm at the end point of this. And it's not necessarily the end. I still have 5 more years in my journey. I don't know where I'll go from there. Especially within the next year or so, I do have plans possibly to get skin removed. Like I said, financially, and there's other things that call for my attention, and the recovery time behind that is very long. I have to consider that. But it's not something that's so heavy or so soon that I need to worry about that in the sense. And the time for that will come. But I'm just glad, all in all, that I get to add, I get to contribute, I get to share a story. Because I know when I was doing my own research, I didn't find too many men that shared their weight loss journey on YouTube in such a long format. So why not? I would say 1, but it's technically 3. Why not add to it?